How do you start it off? I realized
I've just kind of jumped in. We need to figure that out at some point.
Okay, so I went a little bit of a different route this time. I wanted to see this movie. It is a rather newish movie, and I wanted to see it in theaters. I didn't make it to it, but I saw it randomly advertised on Disney Plus, and I thought to myself, that is the movie I'm going to watch. And that movie stars Oscar award-winning Brendan Fraser.
Ooh. I can't remember what of his is recently out.
So, after he did The Whale, and he won his Oscar for, and then he has a very small part in Killers of the Flower Moon, and then he did Rental Family. Have you heard of this one?
Okay. Yes, I have heard of it, but not a ton.
It's
First, for anybody that hasn't seen it, why don't you give us a little taste?
little taste of this movie is Brendan Fraser is a struggling actor in Japan. He is going, gig by gig, and he is not doing well, and he's kind of living a slummy life. They look at him as a very outsider and not quite fitting in. And he gets a job where he is a paid person at a fake funeral. And so then he gets a job with this company where people actually rent family members or rent, people for different circumstances. It really just depends. And so
Is that like you're going home to see the family and they always give you crap about not having a girlfriend, so maybe you rent a girlfriend or something like that?
Yeah,
Something like that?
Something like that. I will say that there's a couple story threads that he's going through with different families. And none of them are quite like that, but
Okay.
everyone that he does do is very interesting. It's very compelling. I think he plays this great character. I think he is such a phenomenal actor, and I'm so sad that he was like
got screwed by the film industry.
Yeah, he was such a heartthrob and leading man, and he was like on top of his career path. And then, and then he totally just disappeared for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's back. I love that he's back. There's rumors that a new Mummy movie is going to be made, and I
heard that too.
That. I'm here for it because I love Brendan Fraser because he's so talented. I feel like I see him in interviews and he is one way, and you kind of wonder how is he such a good actor, because he seems kind of goofy in interviews and just very much an average guy, right? Just so genuine, so nice, and you feel like he couldn't be a successful actor, and yet every role he's in, I lose Brendan Fraser and I see the character he's playing, and he hooks me every time. This movie, no different. I think that he brought the movie does this whole theme of what makes you happy, who, in your life do you have. It's a really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very touching, very it's a little slow, but overall I think that it works in that format, and it has a lot to say, and I think it was a phenomenal movie.
I really love Brendan Fraser's story. I mean, obviously the first part is sad, the way that he was kind of chewed up and spit out by the film industry, chewed up in that he was abused to the point where his body was physically changed from what it was. And then once he was no longer a viable star because of that, then just kind of left to the wayside. Obviously, that side of the story is sad, but his redemption arc of getting to get back and getting a chance to tell his story because of that is absolutely phenomenal. Because I don't feel like, one, there's a lot of redemption arcs, and two, I think that most of the time when we hear these stories of actors fading away from our memory, it's generally just Hollywood. It's generally one of two things. Like Hollywood typecasts you, and so they get stuck in something and they can't get out of it. And eventually they kind of fade away that way. Or two, that if you don't bring in the numbers, that Hollywood just turns their back on you. But it can be much more abusive than that. It can be so much worse than that. And I think that his story really reminds us of how Hollywood can use people. And it's interesting because did you ever watch Up?
Yes.
Hey, Future Sterling here with a quick note. I just said the movie Up, but I actually meant the movie Nope. They are completely different. I have no clue how I mistook this. It's going to confuse the hell out of Mark, and it should be enjoyable to watch that confusion. So let's get back into the video. That's an allegory about Hollywood.
Really?
And yes, I'm trying to think about, because I think the way that animals are used and the way that the people that take care of animals are used is that same kind of way where they'll just like use you and cut you loose. I don't remember the exact thing because it's been a minute since I've kind of read about that, but there's a lot of parallels to, I don't know if the whole thing is all about that, but I think that there are a lot of parallels to the way that Hollywood uses and then kind of turns their back on people.
Well, and thinking about it, I can't really think of any actor who played a leading man that was, a heartthrob who, as you mentioned, had his body broken and because of that could not stay in the same peak shape that he physically was beforehand.
Yeah.
And so, in this movie, he's an overweight guy and he's somewhat balding a bit, and he's not the heartthrob he used to be, but yet he's still a phenomenal actor and can still be in these roles that are powerful, they're meaningful, the role has something to say. And, very great movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's touching. The one thing about this movie, though, so he's in Japan.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's been in Japan for 7 years. It's cool because a lot of the characters will speak Japanese to him.
Well, this is going to be extremely unfortunate for me to edit this. Nope. Not Up.
Oh, yes, I did hear about that one. Nope. You don't have to edit it. Sorry. Hey, everybody that's watching right now, Sterling said a dumb thing, Up. I was thinking the old guy and thinking about...
They're looking up at the clouds, and I remember it was like a one-word thing,
I was really trying to figure out, because I've seen Up, and I was thinking, how is that an allegory for... But yes, now that I know what you're talking about with Nope, yes, Nope is very much that. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and so that's why I mentioned animals and animal trainers and yeah.
Yes. Everybody that stuck around this long, Sterling doesn't know Up from Nope. Very similar movies. As you know, they are basically one and the same. You could put them on side by side. Can't tell them apart. Fun fact.
Yeah. You can play the video for one and the audio for the other and you won't even know.
It syncs up. They kind of do a similar thing. There's like a mystery bird they're finding and a mystery... Anywho.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, the characters... So he's been in Japan for 7 years, and he does speak some Japanese, but it's very minimal. So what'll happen is the characters will speak Japanese to him. He'll understand it, acknowledge it, but then he'll speak in English. And so there's a lot of the characters that also know English, and I do think that that's maybe like one of the downfalls of the movie. I wish that Brendan Fraser was speaking all in Japanese.
Yeah.
But I know that that's really hard to do and very hard to act in a language you don't know. So I'll give it a pass. I feel like they were able to make it feel more authentic by having people speak to him in Japanese and him understanding it. But that's my one qualm. But otherwise, great movie. It's
when you mention the difficulties of acting in a language that's not your main language, I'm curious your take on this. One of the recent winners, I think maybe the Brutalist. I think it was like in the Polish language, and I read that once again, I don't know if it's this movie, but I know it was like one of the Oscar winners used AI to adjust the accent to deal with, if there were any things that didn't sound 100% accurate for, people that are native speakers of the language. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, because we've talked a lot about AI in a bunch of the shows we've covered. We've talked about it when we've talked about Foundation, with Only Murders, a little bit with Pluribus. And I think we both are on the side of having a lot of issues with it, not necessarily being completely against it, but having a lot of issues with it. And I'm curious your take on that.
Wow. AI is not going anywhere, right? Unfortunately, this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
I might not be as worried about AI taking over everything as previous thinking. I am more concerned about the data centers that AI needs to run and the land and the water that's going to consume. As a conservationist, I don't care for that. Yeah. I also don't want AI taking anyone's job if it's related to art. I don't want it to be the creative force writing stories. I don't want it to be the one creating the, visual imagery that we see. But I was actually just thinking about this earlier today of if you could use AI to maybe craft a better, with the big fight scenes in Marvel movies, right? That takes a lot of manpower, a lot of time. If there was a way to make it quicker and make it look real using AI, maybe, because and that comes from a place of
it takes manpower and
overworked.
time, but does that mean that by making that faster that you're taking away from those jobs of, CGI artists?
Well, but specifically with these CGI artists, because I know that a lot of them are overworked, they have unrealistic deadlines, and if there was a way to have it so that they were like, those artists could be the puppeteers of AI to craft something, and this is what I was just thinking about it today, and it just popped in my mind, and I think I'm more on the side of still AI away from really anything art related that's not created by a human. But for something such as tweaking an accent to make it feel a little bit more authentic, I don't know if I necessarily disagree with that, unless that it takes over where instead of, like with this example of Brendan Fraser in Japan, if instead of him, he acts it all in English and then the AI could translate it and make his mouth move in. Do I want that? I don't know. It's a weird, sticky situation. And, there might be later generations that are opposed to people making art, right? They might see why waste our time making art when we can get human quality art from an AI, and then we just look like boomers that were just like, oh, we can't change with the times. I don't know what the right answer is.
It's interesting what you said, the basically AI auto dubbing, because there are tools for that. I've seen some YouTubers that have used tools that will, if you put in what the words are, or it can auto detect the words, but obviously it may not be 100% correct, that it will then translate it to the language of your choice in the voice of the people speaking and adjust the lips so that they match the words. And all of that is done by AI. And that's interesting because it allows you to reach a larger audience and you are doing the creative work. Is that taking away from, normally if you would do that, you would have people that would like dub? And is that taking away from the dubbing industry? Could the dubbing industry really handle all of YouTubers wanting to do that? So is it really taking away from that? I don't know. I think when you get into creative stuff like this, these are weird edge cases where I can't quite tell. When it's like obvious creativity, like doing art, making books, making video clips, things like that's art.
Writing,
Very
yeah.
clear. I'm
Making
not
a song.
a fan of that. When it's helping out in the art process like that, where it's maybe taking away from some niche jobs, but in a weird way where people probably wouldn't be using those niche jobs if they didn't have AI because they couldn't pay the cost of, dubbing for all of those.
Sure.
I don't know. That's where it gets really gray for me. I think where I'm cool with it is like where it helps you with some of the tasks that you are doing, where it's like, if I want to get into running and I just want an idea of like a workout regimen that I can do, to work me up to like a 10K in the span of 3 months, whatever it is, give me a workout plan based off of that. I think things like that, are useful cases for it. But anyways, long diatribe.
Also, thinking about if you had an earpiece that could instantly translate for you in real time, when you could have conversations with people, you could watch anything in its... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Let us know in the comments. Do you think AI is good or do you think AI is bad? And give us reasons, because we don't know.
Okay, so the movie that I watched. So this is going to be, I'll rip off the Band-Aid. This is me watching one of my artsy movies. In this case, it's a foreign language film almost completely in Italian. It takes place in the 1980s, even though it is a recent film. It's from 2023. And the story isn't always clear at times what's going on. So this is not going to be most people's cup of tea. That being said, I thought this was...
Would it be my cup of tea?
I don't know about that. You could be interested. I can't quite tell because it's very slow pacing. I know we've done a lot of slow pacing, but you generally... I don't know about it. So this is La Chimera. It came out in 2023 by director Alice Rohrwacher. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. And it takes place in 1980s in central Italy. The name Chimera obviously comes from Greek mythology. It's this mythical beast that has the head of a lion, the body of a goat, the tail of a serpent. It's a fearsome, fire-breathing beast. But nowadays, when it's used as kind of like a metaphor, it's generally as a metaphor for like an unrealizable, impossible, or grotesque dream or illusion. So it's like something that you try to get, but you never can. And that's what the implication of the title is in this case of La Chimera. And we'll start off with a surface level description. So you have an Englishman who is an archaeologist who was just released from prison and gets back together with a group of people who he robs graves with, looking for, hoping to gain wealth from finding like ancient Etruscan artifacts.
Okay.
The cool thing about the movie is that already is kind of an interesting concept and an interesting story, but that's not really what the movie is about. That's what happens in the movie. The movie is so much. This is the type of movie that begs for a rewatch, and there's a lot of really cool details that are either implied or it's what isn't said instead of what is said that is kind of more important. And so it's one of those things where you really want to go back and kind of rewatch it. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to give away any of the experience of watching it. There is the unfortunate situation where, so afterwards I went to a few sites to like read a description of it to try and give a non-spoilery description to make sure that I didn't really give anything away. And on some sites, including Rotten Tomatoes, there were some extremely spoilery descriptions where to me, it actually wasn't a description. It just kind of told you what happened in the film, including the like undertones that a lot of people may miss on their first watch. And which is kind of what the movie is about. So I would say that if you want to watch a movie like this and you don't want to be confused and you're the type of person who would rather know what's going on, then sure, read a few descriptions ahead of time so you know kind of what you're getting yourself into. But if you're the kind of person that enjoys really thinking about the type of film that you're watching, this is a really cool one, and it has some really cool things to it. So like this, as far as the cinematography goes, first of all, there are really interesting choices where there are, I think, at least like 3 different aspect ratios throughout. And so it kind of makes you wonder, why are they like, is it being shot on different types of film? And if so, what is that trying to tell me? Is that related to different times? Is that related to something else? Like what meaning does that have? And that's the kind of thing a lot of people could miss or not really notice, not really pay attention to. But there's little details like that kind of beg those questions. I don't know if the movie actually was filmed on actual film, but it at least looks like it, which is very refreshing. Nowadays a lot of movies are shot with tons of lighting and digital cameras that can capture every color and everything, and they just kind of have like a bland look to them. They don't have like a specific aesthetic, and maybe they'll like send that through processing and in order to kind of change the tone to make it a little bit more atmospheric, but it still is, you can kind of tell that, and there's something about film that I think has a real beauty to it, and this definitely has that look. And it also, just a little bit, reminds me, it has a few moments that are ever so slightly surreal, which reminds me of another extremely famous Italian filmmaker, Federico Fellini, who...
Did he make Life is Beautiful?
He didn't make Life is Beautiful. He did make, I'm sure you've heard of... So he's older than that. So La Dolce Vita is probably his biggest from 1960. But then he's also done Rome Open City in 1945, La Strada in 1954, Nights of Cabiria in 1957, 8.5 is another one of his biggest ones in 1963. And then I think his other biggest one is Amarcord in 1974. And these are kind of bizarre, surrealist. They don't always have... The narrative is almost dreamlike in that they don't always like follow a perfect path that's easy to follow, and things don't always, weird things can happen, which doesn't quite fit the physics of our world. But they're beautiful movies, and they are from such an interesting period of time, because I think he was alive during Mussolini's time, and
I think that would make sense age-wise.
And so they very much are representative of the life that he lived in Italy at that time. So they really have a sense of time and place to them. So I liked that there was like that little bit that kind of reminded me a little bit of that. So 1,000%, not everybody's cup of tea. But if you watch the trailer and it sounds interesting to you, and what I've said sounds interesting to you, then you might enjoy this movie.
And what was the movie again? One more time?
La Chimera.
La Chimera. Also, I don't know if you folks at home know this, but Sterling is an Italy stan. It's not just that he likes movies that are hoity-toity. He loves Italy, so that's fine.
Well, that's like the double, because like, yes, I'm an elitist asshole, but then also because, so I enjoy foreign language films, but then because I love Italy so much, that oftentimes scratches both itches, where it gets my Italy fix and it gives me, maybe a smaller, maybe artsier movie. But this one,
I wish I was as pretentious as you.
I don't think anybody wishes that.
I do. I wish I knew cool, elegant things. I wish I was a sommelier. But I'm just Ken.
So
okay. What would you rate your movie?
Ooh, man.
I know it's hard to get a very high rating from you, so I'm curious.
Okay. So, I'd put this, I would definitely give it at least an 8. I'd consider a 9. And here's the interesting thing. Even though, so I recently watched One Battle After Another. You can go back, I think, 2 of our episodes to see kind of the discussion about that if you have not seen that. And One Battle After Another, 100% is so much more engaging and enjoyable at so many moments. It's got these amazing sequences. It's thrilling. It's got this interesting, great mix of like comedy, action, a story that really keeps you riveted. And even though I would say that One Battle After Another was a phenomenal movie and was just riveting from start to finish, and this one can be so much slower at times, and you can really kind of question either what's going on or kind of like what's the point, what are they trying to say at certain times. This one, more than any other recent movie, made me say, I have to watch this again. Like I need to watch this over again. It's not just that I could and I might get more from it. It is that I legitimately don't feel like I have a complete comprehension of all of it. And it's not like it's complex like Christopher Nolan. It's that a lot of it isn't necessarily told, and there's a lot of like implied,
inference,
and like subtext that you have to kind of figure out. And I want to know that. And so it's something that really, there are few movies that give me this itch of like, I need to watch this again so I can really appreciate having seen it from start to finish.
Well, it sounds interesting. And I was thinking when you said Italian, all Italian, the first movie that I watched that was all in Italian, It's a Beautiful Life. No. Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful.
Oh my God, that's so good.
That movie is a heavy movie. And yet lighthearted.
It isn't. It's a comedy. Right. It's a comedy through most of it.
It's very lighthearted for the subject matter it deals with.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's that, that movie I think was a wonderful movie. I know that my family hates anything that they have to read if it's in subtitles. Yeah. I don't care if I have to read subtitles, hence why I like the show Dark. But,
right.
So that was the first thought that I thought of when you were saying a movie in all Italian. I thought of Life is Beautiful. Great filmmaker. I forget his name. He was also Pinocchio.
Johnny. No. So I was going to say Johnny Stecchino, but that was one of the films that the ad actor was in.
Because didn't the guy that directed it, wasn't he the main character?
He might have been. Let's see this one.
I might be
IMDb.
speculating wildly. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but
Roberto
that movie,
Benigni is the actor,
Panini, yes.
and he's the director.
I know things. I know things. Write it
I
down
like
in the
how
book.
I tried to call him one of the characters from like a comedy he was in. But
Probably
yeah,
he directed that too.
He's phenomenal.
He is a phenomenal, very talented director and actor. And I would highly recommend that movie. If you have not watched it, it is a long movie and it deals with some pretty heavy topics.
I think that's one of the best bridges for people that don't like having to read, the subtitles. Because
Isn't that movie all in subtitles?
It is all in sub, but I'm saying that like it's if you are only going to do one or two films with subtitles because you generally don't enjoy it, I think that one is a good one because it doesn't also have other things that are going against it for people that don't like subtitles. It's not a slow movie. It's not, a bunch of stuff hidden under the surface where you feel like on top of the homework of having to read, you also have to figure out what's going on. And just because I'm making it sound like it's surface level doesn't mean that it doesn't have depth to it. It does. It has depth. It has heart, but it's got great comedy right off the bat, which I think makes it a little bit more enjoyable and easier to read the subtitles. Sure. And then you see what's going on because this takes place during World War II. And it's kind of surprising that you're having so much comedy given the context of what's going on, which kind of keeps you interested of like, what it feels like anything could happen just because of the time and place that it's in.
Yeah. And
then it does have these like little gut punches, and then the ending is phenomenal. I won't say more about that, but not everybody may agree. When Dawn and I went to Italy for our honeymoon, and we were I think it was like right after we visited Pisa, and we had some time after we got back to our place. Our place was not really close to anything, so there wasn't anything that we could do for the rest of the day. We made dinner. We had some time before we were going to go to bed and then go to the next place. And so I was like, let's watch a movie, so we can take up some of this time. Let's go ahead and have it be an Italian one. And I put on Life is Beautiful, and I think Don might think I'm a little bit of a monster because of that.
I really think that you're a monster. Hey, let's have this nice romantic trip to Italy. And here, let's watch a movie about the Holocaust. You are a monster. You don't watch any movie. You said, let's watch the most sad one. Okay.
It's mostly a comedy.
Mostly. It's a comedy with the backdrop of the Holocaust.
Yeah. So, great movie.
Great movie. Perfect.